There's a certain comfort in assuming that aliens have not visited Earth. It gives us a stable frame through which to understand the universe. A sense that if cosmic neighbors existed, and if they'd crossed the void to reach us, their presence would be unmistakable, undeniable, impossible to conceal. After all, when humans arrive somewhere new, we announce ourselves. We stake flags, build structures, leave artifacts, reshape the environment, alter the ecosystem, imprint our existence everywhere we go. It is hard for us to imagine intelligence behaving any other way. And so, the simple conclusion feels reasonable. If aliens are here, I would know. But this belief rests on a fragile foundation. It assumes extraterrestrials would think, behave, or even perceive reality the way we do. It assumes that arrival implies exposure, that visitation implies communication, that intelligence implies compatibility, that interest implies interaction. What if all these assumptions are wrong? What if the universe has its own logic, vast, indifferent, and older than anything we can imagine, shaping the choices of civilizations that have existed for millions of years longer than our own? What if the very reason we're so certain aliens haven't visited is the exact reason they would hide? There is another possibility, the one we avoid because it pulls the floor out from under us. Aliens may have visited Earth. They may be here now, and they may have powerful, rational, scientifically grounded reasons to remain completely invisible. Reasons rooted not in fear, but in strategy. Not in malevolence, but in cosmic caution. Not in some Hollywood conspiracy, but in principles that we ourselves already apply to nature, to science, to exploration. Tonight's inquiry is not about proving aliens are here. It is about confronting the uncomfortable idea that if they are here, we should not expect to know. Because the universe does not owe us legibility. Intelligence does not guarantee compatibility. Visitation does not guarantee revelation. Instead, we ask a quieter question. If they were here, what believable, rational reasons would they have to hide from us? What follows in the next segments are the 7 most compelling answers, each one grounded not in fantasy, but in the best extrapolations we can make from biology, anthropology, psychology, evolutionary behavior, astrophysics, and the logic of advanced civilizations. By the time we reach the end, your assumption may no longer feel as airtight as it once did. If an advanced extraterrestrial civilization were to visit Earth, one guiding principle would rise above almost every other. Do not interfere. Not out of fear, not out of hostility, but out of a deeper understanding of how fragile intelligence truly is, especially in its early stages. Humanity already follows a version of this rule. When researchers study isolated tribes, groups with no contact with modern civilization, they avoid revealing themselves. Not because the tribe is dangerous, not because the tribe is unimportant, but because the very presence of an outside observer can shatter everything: their belief systems, their sense of identity, their technological development, their cultural cohesion, their psychological grounding in reality. One encounter can change the arc of a civilization forever. Now scale that logic to a species capable of crossing interstellar space. Imagine a civilization that has survived its technological adolescence, the stage humanity is currently in, where nuclear power, artificial intelligence, biological engineering, and planetary-scale industries exist right on the knife's edge of self-destruction. Imagine a species that has watched dozens of planets rise and fall, that has witnessed their own civilizations almost collapse, that knows the danger of introducing new variables too early. For them, hiding would not be an ethical choice. It would be a scientific necessity. We are midway through our own cultural evolution. Humans today occupy a strange position on the timeline of intelligence. We have advanced mathematics, but primitive emotional regulation. We wield global communications, but lack global unity. We can simulate the weather, but cannot control our own political storms. We navigate the solar system, but still struggle with basic conflict on Earth. To a more mature civilization, we would appear like an adolescent species, brilliant but unstable, inquisitive but reactive, capable but fragile. Any sudden introduction of undeniable extraterrestrial presence could destabilize governments, shift power structures, trigger religious upheaval, reorient social values, collapse fragile institutions, cause panic or militarization. In anthropology, this is known as contact shock. On a planetary scale, it becomes civilization shock. An advanced species may hide simply because revealing themselves would destroy the very thing they are studying. The scientific motive: preserving the experiment. If extraterrestrials are here for observational purposes, the way humans study ecosystems or social groups, then non-interference becomes not an option, but a rule. No contact, no influence, no contamination, no visibility, no trace. To preserve the validity of their research, they would need humanity to behave naturally, unaware, unaltered, unpressured by the knowledge of a cosmic audience. The moment humanity knows, the experiment collapses. How they could hide without effort. For a species thousands or millions of years ahead of us, invisibility may be trivial. Cloaking through light-bending materials, hiding in deep oceans, operating in high atmosphere or orbit, using micro-scale probes, embedding themselves outside the EM spectrum we can detect, masking emissions at frequencies we cannot sense, blending signals into background cosmic noise. To them, hiding isn't hard. It's effortless. We struggle to find stealth aircraft built by our own species. How would we find a craft built by a civilization with a million-year head start? The ethical motive, the prime directive before we invented it. If humanity can foresee the destructive consequences of interfering with a Stone Age tribe, a cosmic civilization could easily foresee the consequences of interfering with us. They may have encountered thousands of worlds like ours. They may have watched civilizations collapse because of premature contact. They may have learned, painfully, repeatedly, that the safest form of observation is the quietest form. And so, while we wonder why aliens wouldn't reveal themselves if they were here, they may be wondering why we assume they would. Their silence may not be evasive. It may be responsible, a boundary, a protocol, a promise to protect the developmental arc of emergent intelligence, a promise that requires them to remain invisible. If aliens have come to Earth and chosen to remain hidden, one of the simplest, most quietly unsettling explanations is this: humanity has nothing to offer them, not because we are insignificant in a moral sense, but because we are insignificant in a practical one. We imagine contact through a human lens: exchange, diplomacy, mutual benefit, curiosity, and cultural discovery. But this assumes an equivalency between species that likely does not exist. In reality, the power dynamic between humanity and an interstellar civilization would be so profoundly lopsided that the notion of equal contact collapses immediately. We cannot trade with a species millions of years ahead. Human civilization is still in its infancy. We are only a few centuries into industrialization, barely a century into modern physics, decades into the space age, and mere years into serious AI research. An advanced civilization may have solved energy scarcity, mastered biological engineering, harnessed space-time manipulation, achieved post-scarcity resource systems, overcome disease, aging, or decay, expanded beyond planetary boundaries, incorporated machine intelligence seamlessly, mapped the structure of consciousness, extended their perception into dimensions we cannot observe. From such a perspective, humanity would appear primitive, not in an insulting way, but in the same way that a Stone Age settlement appears primitive to a modern scientist. We do not land helicopters in the middle of an uncontacted tribe to trade smartphones for spears, not because the tribe is unworthy, but because the transaction is meaningless. We cannot offer resources they don't already have. People often assume aliens might want gold, water, fuel, minerals, biological samples, but the universe is overflowing with such materials. Asteroids contain more metal than entire countries. Comets contain oceans worth of water. Molecular clouds contain every chemical imaginable. Stars provide energy beyond comprehension. Earth's resources are neither rare nor unique on a cosmic scale. If anything, planets like Earth, with weather, tectonics, and life, are less convenient sources of raw materials than sterile asteroids or moons. Why dig through Earth's biosphere when you can mine a silent, empty rock with no resistance and no complexity? Knowledge is not a currency, not to them. Human knowledge seems vast and precious to us, but to a civilization that has crossed interstellar distances, our entire scientific corpus might look like early guesses, partial models, approximations, half-formed theories, low-resolution understanding. Their comprehension of physics alone may be as far beyond ours as modern quantum mechanics is beyond fire-making. We imagine aliens landing and saying, "Teach us." But perhaps the truth is colder. There is nothing we know that they do not already consider trivial. Culture might be interesting, but not worth contact. Some theorists imagine aliens wanting to learn from our art, music, stories, and creativity. And perhaps they would be curious, the way we are curious about the behavior of dolphins. But curiosity does not imply contact. We do not demand conversation with dolphins. We observe from a distance, protect them where possible, catalog their behavior, and allow them to remain undisturbed. Aliens might do the same with us. Culture worthy of observation does not require communication. The risk/reward ratio leans entirely against interaction. If humans can offer nothing beneficial, then any interaction would be pure risk of miscommunication, risk of hostility, risk of cultural contamination, risk of biological incompatibility, risk of altering our development, risk of becoming entangled in our conflicts, risk of unpredictable response. A species that can travel across stars likely operates on a precision-based logic. High risk, zero reward equals zero contact. Thus, if they are here, they may see no advantage in revealing themselves to a young, volatile, resource-poor, conflict-prone species with nothing to trade. We think they would want something from us. But why? This is the human-centric flaw embedded in our assumptions. We believe contact implies purpose directed toward us. But if aliens visited Earth, their purpose might be scientific, cartographic, ecological, historical, exploratory, strategic, or simply incidental. In none of these scenarios do they need human cooperation or acknowledgement. To them, we may be an observed species, not a partner, not an adversary, not a resource, not a threat, not a prize, just a data point, which means the most rational choice is the simplest. Stay hidden. Collect information. Avoid unnecessary entanglement with a species that has nothing to offer in return. Of all the explanations for why an advanced extraterrestrial civilization might hide from humanity, this one is the most counterintuitive and the most unsettling. The strong often hide from the weak, not out of fear, not out of vulnerability, but because exposure introduces variables, and variables create risk, even when the probability of danger is microscopic. In Earth's ecosystems, the most intelligent predators do not roar their presence. They move with silence. They observe from cover. They reveal themselves only in the rare moments when it serves their purpose. Wolves stalk unseen before they strike. Orcas hunt in coordinated silence. Lions melt into the tall grass. Owls glide on soundless wings. Even apex predators, creatures at the top of their food chain, understand the value of remaining hidden, not because they fear retaliation, but because stealth gives them full control. Now extend that principle upward, far upward, beyond biology, beyond instinct, to a civilization capable of crossing light years. Superior does not mean careless. A species technologically superior to ours might possess unimaginable capabilities, mastering gravity, bending light, manipulating quantum-scale energy, rendering their presence undetectable, analyzing ecosystems without leaving a trace. But superiority does not encourage arrogance. It encourages caution. Why would they reveal themselves to a species that panics under uncertainty, reacts violently to perceived threats, weaponizes anything unfamiliar, is still divided into nations, struggles with stable leadership, interprets the unknown through fear? First, curiosity second. Even if humanity posed no real threat to them, our behavior could create complications. A misfired missile, a panicked military response, a religious upheaval, global chaos. Detection by rival human factions, an attempt to capture, study, or worship them. Each scenario introduces noise, unnecessary, unpredictable, undesirable. From a perspective of evolutionary logic, the safest interaction with a volatile species is no interaction at all. The silent predator principle. In ecology, the apex predator gains nothing by announcing its presence. Stealth allows observation, control, choice, adaptive timing, freedom from engagement. The ultimate predator is defined not by strength, but by selective visibility. Aliens may treat us similarly, not as prey, but as a species that behaves unpredictably when confronted by a higher intelligence. Even if their intentions are peaceful, they may still follow this rule. Do not be seen unless absolutely necessary. A simple rule, a powerful rule, a rule that may have allowed them to survive countless encounters across the galaxy. A voiceless hierarchy. Humanity comforts itself with the belief that intelligence implies empathy, or at least communication. But intelligence does not erase hierarchy. It deepens it. Imagine a species that has studied thousands of worlds, categorized millions of life forms, seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, learned which ones become dangerous, learned which ones collapse under pressure, learned that visibility is a vulnerability. Their default posture toward primitive species might simply be, watch quietly, avoid influence, avoid contact, avoid complications, stay unseen. What if they already learned this lesson the hard way? What if somewhere else in the galaxy they did announce themselves to a species slightly more advanced than us, and it went wrong? Maybe it triggered a war, maybe it caused cultural breakdown, maybe it destabilized a civilization, maybe it revealed their presence to another hostile species, maybe it introduced a biological contamination, maybe it caused a cascade they could not control. Once a civilization learns that visibility carries cosmic consequences, the logical response is to become invisible everywhere, to stand in the tall grass of the universe, watching carefully, moving silently, revealing nothing. Power prefers silence. The strongest beings in nature are the ones who choose when to be seen. A civilization capable of traversing the cosmos would understand this deeply. To them, stealth would not be a tactic. It would be a way of life. So if aliens have visited Earth, the Predator's paradox suggests they would not appear in our skies, or hover over our cities, or land in our fields. They would watch from the shadows, from orbit, from the ocean, from frequencies we cannot detect, from dimensions we barely understand, not because they fear us, but because they do not reveal themselves to lesser species unless they choose to, and so far they have not chosen to. We imagine alien contact through a deeply human filter: conversation, diplomacy, shared ideas, exchanges of knowledge, perhaps even collaboration. But this expectation assumes something profoundly fragile, that alien minds would be compatible with ours. This is almost certainly wrong. The prime minds problem suggests that the greatest barrier to alien contact may be cognitive, not technological, not biological, not political. Simply put, our minds may be fundamentally incapable of communicating with theirs. This idea isn't rooted in science fiction. It's rooted in mathematics, neurology, anthropology, and even the limits of human perception. Different evolution, different brains, different reality. Human intelligence evolved from primate social structures, bipedal locomotion, rapid tool innovation, predator-prey dynamics, tribal cohesion, emotional bonding, survival pressures, pattern recognition in nature. Our sensory world is tuned to visible light, mid-range sound waves, tactile contact, chemical taste and smell, linear time perception. But what if an alien species evolved in pitch-black oceans, in multi-dimensional habitats, in electromagnetic storm worlds, with distributed hive minds, with no eyes or thousands of them, with sonar as their primary sense, with cognition based on quantum states, with emotional frameworks we cannot imagine? To them, our communication might be slow, imprecise, abstract, irrational, biologically limited, neurologically incompatible. The idea of speaking to humanity could be as absurd as us trying to deliver a TED Talk to a colony of ants. Humans cannot meaningfully communicate with most life on Earth. This is critical. We can observe animals, we can train them, We can infer their internal states. But we cannot exchange ideas with dolphins, whales, octopuses, elephants, crows, wolves. Even though these species are intelligent by Earth standards, we do not share a common symbolic language, a shared evolutionary environment, a compatible sensory world, matching neurological structures. If communication breaks down between Earth species separated by a few million years of evolution, what hope do we have with an extraterrestrial species separated by a billion? The prime number problem. Humans often imagine communication with aliens beginning with simple mathematics, prime numbers, patterns, geometric sequences. But this assumes that they perceive numbers the way we do. They consider our mathematical structures fundamental. They use symbolic logic. They transmit information in a way our brains can parse. They operate in linear time. They experience individuality. If their cognition evolved from a completely different set of pressures, say as a collective intelligence or a distributed neural mesh, then our most basic conceptual frameworks may not overlap at all. Prime numbers might be meaningless. Symbols might be meaningless. Speech, tone, gesture, all irrelevant. Meaning itself might not translate. Communication could be dangerous for both sides. Even if communication were possible, an advanced species may hide to avoid contaminating our cognitive development. Information beyond our ability to understand could break cultural systems, destabilize political structures, topple worldviews, accelerate technological progress too fast, expose concepts that trigger existential collapse. A single idea, poorly understood, prematurely delivered, could rewrite societies. This alone could justify complete silence. Intelligence is not universal. It is contextual. The greatest danger in our assumptions is believing that intelligence scales predictably across species. Our intelligence is shaped by Earth. Our physics is shaped by our senses. Our logic is shaped by our biology. Our language is shaped by our history. A species that evolved under completely different conditions may think in ways we cannot decode. Maybe they do not use words, use sound, use symbols, distinguish individuals, compute sequentially, express emotion, experience selfhood. We cannot expect compatibility, which means the simplest conclusion may be, aliens hide because meaningful communication is impossible, and attempting it could cause irreversible damage to both civilizations. They may understand us perfectly, but we cannot understand them. Perhaps they have already mapped our brains, our languages, our culture, our behavior. But what if, after studying us, they concluded, there is no safe or constructive way to interface with these beings? Not because we lack intelligence, but because our intelligence operates on a different substrate. A parallel line, never intersecting, never overlapping. So they remain quiet, patient, observing from a cognitive height we cannot reach and cannot even perceive, hidden not out of fear, but out of incompatibility. If extraterrestrials are here, one of the strongest reasons they might remain hidden has nothing to do with fear, danger, or superiority. It has to do with purity of data. The observer effect, a principle echoed in quantum physics, anthropology, psychology, and even ecology, states that the act of observing something changes it. And when an advanced civilization studies a developing species, the last thing they want is to contaminate the results. We are not a civilization to contact. We are a civilization to observe. Imagine a species that catalogs planets the way humans catalog animal behavior. They study early intelligence, social structures, conflict resolution, technological progression, cultural evolution, ecological interaction, emotional development, decision-making under pressure. To them, Earth may not be a destination of diplomacy, but a field site, a long-term experiment, a record of evolution unfolding in real time. But if they reveal themselves, the experiment collapses. Contact would immediately distort humanity. Humans behave differently when watched. We do it individually. People change their tone, posture, and actions when they know others are observing. We do it socially. Nations alter policy when under scrutiny. We do it culturally. Public awareness shifts collective behavior. Now extend this to global knowledge of an extraterrestrial presence. Humanity's entire trajectory would warp overnight. Religious systems would transform or fracture. Governments would shift into emergency postures. Scientific agendas would reorient. Militaries would panic or mobilize. Economies would destabilize. Ideologies would mutate. Nations might race to control communication. Chaos might erupt. Cults might form. Wars might ignite. Technological development would accelerate unnaturally. In short, humanity stops being human the moment we know we are not alone. We become something new, something unpredictable. From a scientific perspective, this is contamination. The quantum parallel. In quantum mechanics, electrons behave differently when measured. The simple presence of an observer collapses a wave function. To an advanced civilization, humanity may be a macroscopic version of that principle. We behave naturally, only under the assumption that we are unobserved. The moment we know otherwise, everything changes. The wave function collapses. The experiment is ruined. The timeline becomes corrupted. They want to see who we really are, not who we pretend to be. Humans behave differently under surveillance and infinitely differently under existential revelation. If aliens want to know how we develop, what choices we make, how we treat each other, how we solve global problems, whether we overcome tribalism, whether we establish peace, how we handle climate, energy, or technology, how we confront existential threats. Their best strategy is silence. Once they appear, we no longer make decisions from internal motivations. We make them in reaction to an external, superior presence. We no longer evolve organically. We evolve defensively. Anxiously, politically, fearfully, erratically. A civilization reacting to cosmic observers cannot be studied honestly. For them, contact isn't helpful. It's destructive. Alien observers may already have seen civilizations destroyed by premature knowledge, species that collapsed under existential revelation, worlds where belief systems imploded, cultures that turned violent upon discovering observers, societies that rapidly accelerated into self-destruction. They may have watched it unfold 1,000 times, and so they adopt a universal rule. Never reveal your presence to a species still defining itself, which means humanity will remain unaware until we pass certain thresholds, reach certain levels of stability, or become irrelevant to the experiment. The silent ethic of cosmic science. Imagine dedicating thousands of years to studying a young civilization. Hundreds of generations of alien scientists watching us like astronomers watch stars. Then one accidental revelation, a landing, a signal, a visible spacecraft, and the study ends. Not because the aliens leave, but because humanity stops being the thing they were studying. The aliens don't have to act. The knowledge alone changes everything. So they hide, not out of fear, not out of cruelty, but out of scientific necessity. Their silence may be the purest form of respect. There's a quiet terror that haunts the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, a shadow that stretches across every optimistic equation and every hopeful glance at the night sky. It is the possibility that every civilization reaches a moment that destroys it, a threshold, a catastrophe, a technological wall, a biological misstep, a cosmic inevitability, a point of no return. We call it the Great Filter, a barrier that prevents nearly all intelligent life from surviving long enough to explore the stars. What if aliens hide from us because they have already passed through that filter, and they know humanity has not? What if they understand something about the timeline of young civilizations, something we have not yet learned, something they cannot reveal without accelerating our collapse? They may have survived their own catastrophic threshold. Every advanced species must confront existential danger, AI beyond control, nanotechnological runaway, engineered pandemics, environmental collapse, nuclear escalation, asteroid impacts, resource exhaustion, climate catastrophes, self-replicating machines, quantum technologies that unravel physics, wars sparked by exponential weapons, cosmic threats we cannot imagine. If they survived these events, it would have required extraordinary caution, strategic silence, monumental restraint, extreme risk aversion. A species that learned survival through silence might adopt that silence everywhere they go. They know how dangerous awareness can be. If humanity becomes aware of alien observation, our reaction would not be linear. It would be explosive. We would weaponize faster, research harder, panic more, accelerate technology without caution, unify or fragment unpredictably, destabilize global powers, rush into breakthroughs we cannot control. Awareness of extraterrestrial intelligence could trigger a runaway escalation, a desperate race to catch up with beings far beyond us. From the aliens' perspective, this might look identical to civilizations they've already watched destroy themselves. A species rushing toward the filter at full speed. Thus, revealing themselves might become the ultimate moral hazard. They have seen this before. Imagine an ancient species that has cataloged thousands of developing worlds. They watch civilizations rise: fire, agriculture, writing, metallurgy, industry, electricity, computation, nuclear power, artificial intelligence. And then, at the same stage we are in now, the majority collapse. Maybe entire star systems bear silent testimony to those failures: dead worlds, glass fields, machine husks, atmosphere stripped to nothing, ruins preserved through vacuum, planets scarred by wars that ended too quickly. They may have watched these collapses so many times that a pattern emerged. The moment a species learns, it is not alone, it accelerates toward its own destruction. Through fear, through competition, through panic, through ambition, through the desire to catch up, through the temptation to unlock dangerous knowledge too early, so they remain silent to protect us from ourselves. They do not hide out of fear. They hide out of experience. The idea is chilling. Aliens may not be hiding because of what we are, but because of what we will become once we know they are here. We are not ready. Not psychologically, not politically, not technologically, not morally, not collectively. If they have witnessed civilizations tear themselves apart at this phase, their silence becomes an act of cosmic triage. Humanity is at the dawn of its most dangerous century. We are entering a period where AI grows exponentially. Gene editing becomes universal. Nanotechnology rewrites biology. Climate instability accelerates. Nuclear weapons proliferate. Resource pressures mount. Geopolitical fragmentation intensifies. Automation destabilizes economies. Misinformation erodes coherence. Energy demand skyrockets. To an advanced species, this is the exact profile of civilizations that fail. Thus, revealing themselves now could destabilize us beyond repair. Silence is the lesser danger. Maybe they plan to reveal themselves, but only if we survive. There may be a threshold we must pass: sustainable global governance, stable, peaceful cooperation, safe control of advanced technologies, energy abundance without ecological destruction, unified planetary identity, mastery over existential military threats, psychological maturity as a species. If we reach these, the great filter may be behind us, and they may step forward. But until then, contact remains a risk they cannot afford to take. They know the ending unless we change it. The great filter explanation is the most haunting of all. They hide because they have seen the future of countless civilizations, and they worry we are heading toward the same fate. Their silence might not be indifference. It might be sorrow, patience, hope. A quiet belief that perhaps this time the young species will make it through. There is another possibility, one that slips quietly beneath our assumptions and makes every argument about alien contact feel strangely self-centered. It is the idea that if extraterrestrials have visited Earth, their mission has nothing to do with humanity at all. We imagine ourselves as the focal point of alien interest, the prize, the discovery, the reason to cross the dark ocean of space. But perhaps we are not the protagonists in this story. Perhaps we are not even characters, just background noise in a far larger operation. Earth might have qualities that have nothing to do with us. To an advanced civilization, Earth's value may lie in features we barely notice: its magnetic field fluctuations, its unique isotopic ratios, the composition of its mantle, the structure of its oceans, gravitational anomalies at plate boundaries, deep-sea vent chemistry, atmospheric signatures, microbial diversity, mineral formations under extreme pressure, tectonic breathing cycles, cosmic ray interactions with the magnetosphere, quantum-level phenomena in biological systems. Any one of these could be rare, precious, or scientifically important to a civilization capable of traversing the stars. They may be studying something humanity has no concept of: geoquantum resonance, dark matter interactions with Earth's core, cosmic particle filtration, deep-time biological networks, rare molecular patterns, energy gradients in the crust, interactions between magnetic storms and oceans. To them, Earth might not be a planet filled with life. It might be a laboratory, a node, a resource, a reference point, a baseline, and humanity is simply incidental. We notice ourselves. Aliens do not have to. Humans behave as though we are the defining feature of Earth. But from above, Earth is mostly water. Highly active, geologically alive, magnetically dynamic, rich in complex chemistry, constantly bombarded by solar radiation, full of energy flows and gradients. Humans occupy a tiny fraction of the planet's volume and time. We have existed for a blink, a sliver of deep time. If aliens think in planetary or cosmic scales, we might barely register. They may not care about us, any more than deep-sea researchers care about fish that swim near a submarine. Those creatures aren't the mission. They're part of the environment. They may already be studying the places we don't look. If extraterrestrials were studying Earth's deeper systems, their presence might be found in subduction zones, mid-ocean ridges, hydrothermal vents, mantle plumes, polar magnetic anomalies, the deep mesopelagic zone, high-atmosphere ionization layers, subterranean caverns, gravitational nodes, volcanic chambers, the oceanic thermocline, the mesosphere boundary. These are regions where humans don't go. Instruments rarely penetrate. EM noise is low. Pressures or temperatures are extreme. Seismic patterns mask movement. Natural phenomena provide perfect cover. They could hide entire fleets down there, and we would detect nothing, because they are not here for us. They are here for Earth itself. What if Earth is a stop, not a destination? Consider alternate motives surveying planets along a cosmic travel route, refueling at deep ocean energy gradients, calibrating long-range navigation tools, using Earth's orbit as a gravitational correction point, monitoring dark matter flux in the solar neighborhood, mapping stellar particle flows, studying cosmic background variations, tagging life-rich worlds for later research. In all these scenarios, humanity is as relevant as insects scurrying across a research outpost, a mild inconvenience, a mild curiosity, not the point. We expect aliens to see us, but why would they? Humans are loud, emotional, chaotic creatures who assume that our intelligence elevates us to cosmic significance. But intelligence is not importance. Consciousness is not centrality. Curiosity is not relevance. We think aliens would come here to greet us because we greet each other. We think aliens would care about us because we care about discovery. We think aliens would land on the White House lawn because Hollywood taught us so. But their motives may be alien in the truest sense. Unrelated to life, emotion, biology, or curiosity. Their priorities may lie in physics, chemistry, stability, energy, longevity, cosmic scale engineering, resource mapping, interstellar wayfinding, scientific predictability, not conversation. The most humbling idea. Perhaps the most believable, rational explanation for their silence is this: humanity was never the focus of their visit. We were never the point. We were never the target audience. Aliens may not hide from us intentionally. They may simply be ignoring us. The way a passing research ship ignores birds circling overhead, not because the birds are unimportant, but because the mission lies elsewhere. We wait for a signal that is not coming. We expect attention that is not directed at us. We anticipate relevance we may not have. The universe might be full of travelers who saw Earth's beauty, its geology, its energy, its deep oceans, its stunning complexity, but not its people, and so they remain invisible. Not because they fear us, but because we simply do not matter to the purpose of their presence. Not yet. Maybe not ever.